In this video, I want to talk about how to reverse engineer your goals and actually create a game plan that's broken down per quarter, per month, per week, and per day so you can figure out exactly what you need to do and create a step-by-step plan and do this more systematically so as you go, you can track your progress, see how you're doing, and make adjustments to your plan so you can pretty much ensure that you achieve your goals, because it's easy to project what your goals are going to be and what your numbers are going to be, but it's harder to hit them. So as things fluctuate in your actual plan, you actually want to make sure you're going to hit those goals. So let's talk about it. Let's take a really simple example and let's reverse engineer it. So let's say you want to make $100,000 in gross revenue per year, right? And that's just a round number. If you want to make 200, just times this times 2. If you want to make 300, times 3, etc. Or cut it in half if you want to make less. So obviously, most people are going to want to make more, so let's start there. And let's say that your average commission is $5,000, right? So the first thing is to see how many sales you actually need to make. Now this is simple math, and I'm sure you've already ran this before. So if you take $100,000, divided it by $5,000 commission, you have 20 deals, right? 20 sales. So you know that, hey, I want to hit 100,000 bucks. My average commission is $5,000. That means I need to hit 20 sales per year, and let's divide that by month. So now from here, let's break this down and start getting a more micro look at it. So the next thing is take 20 sales divided by 12 months equals, I think, 1.6, 1.7. If you want to round that up, just say 2 per month to be safe, right? So that's kind of like just big, simple math. This isn't complicated. This is really easy for anyone to do. The next thing is taking that down and shrinking it in a little bit more. So let's just say you need to hit 2 sales per month, right? To hit your goal. Obviously, some months are going to be better than others. If you're in an area where all the sales are happening in the spring and then it's slow over the summer and it picks up between like Thanksgiving and the end of the year, you kind of got to think of that. So if you're doing 2 sales per month, maybe you're making 3 in your busy time, 1 in your slow time, and 2 in your average season, so to speak. So let's just say you want to make 2 sales per month. The next thing is, where are you going to get those sales? Maybe it's, if you're a listing agent, maybe it's from getting listings. So I'm going to focus on listings because I know a lot of agents focus there, and then the buyers are kind of gravy, or they work with a buyer team, and that's how they do it. So let's talk about this from a listing perspective. So if you want to list 2 or sell 2 homes per year, what percentage of your listings sell? In a recession, maybe it's like 10 to 20% of your listings are selling. If you're in a good market, maybe 50% of your listings sell before they expire, or maybe even more. So let's just run simple math for the sake of simple math and say that 50% of your listings sell, right? And if you're a really good agent and you're good at getting price reductions, or you're very selective on the listings that you take, chances are that's a lot higher. But let's just run the math off of 50%. Well, to hit 2 sales per month, we need 4 new listings. 4 new listings per month. That's your goal. So now, what are you going to do to get 4 listings per month? What I'd highly recommend is either you got a stream of income, so to speak. Let's just say you're the FSBO or expired king or queen, and that's a good stream of income. Well, if you want to double your business and you've tapped that out, you want to add a second stream of income. So that's kind of the thing to think about, is what niche, what marketing campaign, what sales funnel, or whatever you want to think of it as, do you need to pursue to hit 4 new listings per month? Maybe you already got 2 new listings per month from expireds. I don't know. So let's take that and break that down. So I kind of have my cheat sheet because I ran this math earlier, and I want to talk about some different situations. So let's talk about expireds or FSBOs, right? So every market has some of these, or if you're in a really hot market, you're going to probably have a bunch of for sale by owners. If you're in a market where homes are expiring like crazy, maybe a little slower, or even like in a time of a recession, expireds are like a huge source of business because so many homes are expiring. So regardless of what's going on, there's chances are there's one or the other or both of these sources of business out there. The thing is, tons of other agents know about it. So they're going to be extremely competitive. So you're going to have to do a really good job to make that work, right? Another source of business is farming, right? And I'm going to also call this EDDM because that stands for Every Door Direct Mail. That's another source of business that we can break down. Beyond that, you can obviously do referrals. You can do social media marketing. There's a whole bunch of other things. Or you could go after niches like vacants, people going through divorce. You know, some of these are kind of hardships niches. Or you can go through after people going after foreclosures. You could go after bank-owned homes, real estate investors, kind of any niche you want to go after and pursue, and you could become a specialist at it. So there's many ways to figure out how you're going to get those listings. For an example, if you're going after farming, about 10% of the US population, and sometimes more and less depending upon the year, move per year. And in different neighborhoods, they may turn over at a higher rate or a lower rate than that. So if you want to farm an area, this could be a really good way to go after an area, become the expert for that territory, and list a ton of homes. It's a really good game plan for long-term stability. I see a lot of people doing a phenomenal job with this. So we're going to talk about that and break that down quickly. FSBOs and expireds, let's kind of start there. So let's just say you're going after 100 leads per month, right? So 100 leads, what are you going to need to do to get 4 listings from this per month? If you got 100 leads and you do a bad job with it, there's no way in the world you're going to get your 4 listings. If you do a great job with it, you may get 10 listings out of it. It all depends on how much competition's out there, who's pursuing it, how good of a job they're doing it, how good of a job you do, etc. But let's just say that you have a really good campaign and you can get 8 to 10% of the buyers and FSBOs, or the FSBOs and expireds, to meet with you, right? And let you do a listing presentation. Well, if that's the case and you list 50%, so 50% list, that could be, 40 to 50%, that could be 4 to 5 listings per month. Now, obviously, there's a ton of variables in there, and there's a ton of steps that can break it down. For example, there's no way if you're in a super competitive niche and you got hundreds of agents pursuing these same leads that you're going to get 8 to 10% unless you do an amazing job. But if you follow up with them and you have a campaign and say, okay, I'm going to follow up with them 10 times or up to 7 times or until I reach them. And once I reach them, I'm going to decide how aggressive to be with them, like how aggressively to follow up and pursue them and try to get the listing. If they're already sold, like let's just say they're an expired and they're really happy with the last agent that tried to sell their home and they're going to relist with them in a month or 2, maybe you back off and you take that lead and say, I'm not going to pursue it anymore. So that's what I'm talking about. But if you're going to go really aggressive after these 100 leads and you're going to mail them, you're going to call them, you're going to send them a book if you have a book under authorify.com or something like that. Or you just mail them letters or you knock on their doors. But if you take those 100 leads and you do a great job, maybe you can get 8 to 10%. If you're in a really aggressive market, maybe it's only 2 to 3%. So whatever those numbers are and whatever that is, you need to sit there and track it, be realistic about it, and if this is not true, you need to readjust your plan or add another stream of income. So that's kind of like how you could go after expireds and FSBOs and end up with 4 to 5 listings. Is this a proven game plan? No, this is just an idea of how to break down the numbers and how to figure out how you're going to achieve your goal and reverse engineer to this point so you know what you need to do. So for an example, let's say you were going to contact those leads up to 7 times until you reach them and the average person took 5 times. That means you're going to need to make 500 contacts within 30 days. And are you going to make those all with mail? Or are you going to make some of them with mail and some of them with cold calls? Or are you going to make them all with cold calls because maybe you have more time than money? So figuring out this and how to create and structure a plan for you is super important because every person is different. If you're a warm and fuzzy person that likes to bond your way to success, maybe it's not realistic to call these because you don't like rejection. If you're a really aggressive person, you like to lock yourself in the door in your office for 4 hours in the morning and cold call your way to success, maybe cold calling is your strategy. I'm not saying it is or is not, but it's all about who you are, what your personality is, what your market conditions are, and who your competition and how aggressive they are. Looking at that and establishing a plan. And once you put that plan and those projections into place, following up and tracking that progress to ensure you actually can accomplish the goal with that stream of business. And we'll talk more about how to track and stuff in other videos. So let's talk about farming for a minute. So if you're going to farm a neighborhood and you're going to mail every door direct mail postcards, that's every door direct mail is kind of like a wholesale postcards that the USPS does, and we'll have a whole nother course, guide, etc. on it. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but it's a way to get your postcards mailed for dirt cheap compared to other methods. So if you're going to farm a neighborhood, let's just say that you decide to go after 1,000 leads, and you're going to say, hey, I want to hit this entire neighborhood. It's a big neighborhood. I live in it. I can farm it. I'm here, or whatever it is. I'm going to go after 1,000 leads, and let's just say that 2% of the people you mail actually respond with an appointment. Not respond with an appointment, but they respond to you. And from there, 50% of those will actually meet, right? So 50% meet, that's 10 appointments. And from 10 appointments, what percentage of those are actually going to list with you? Maybe some aren't ready today, but they'll be ready in the future. Let's just say that 40% would. If 40% would actually list, that means those 10 appointments are going to turn into your 4 listings. Now, obviously, all of this math has to be true for that goal to be achieved. And if any of these numbers change, you have to adjust your plan. Either target more, target less if you're getting a higher percentage here, but understanding how your numbers break down and then monitoring that to more or less ensure you're going to hit your goal is really, really important. So this is just a goal. This is just an idea. The numbers may break down differently. If you write a really crappy postcard, you're not going to get a 2% conversion. If you write an excellent postcard, you're probably not going to get better than a 10% conversion because around 10% of the people move per year. How often or how much earlier do people start thinking about selling? If maybe they get a job in a different area and they have to relocate, or they get a raise and they can afford a bigger home, or they're having a family. So whatever that is, chances are, because only, it all depends on your neighborhood. If your neighborhood's turning over at 15%, you probably can get a higher response rate with a crappier postcard, so to speak, than in a neighborhood that turns over at 2% per year with the best copy and the most extravagant, amazing marketing in the world. So picking the right market, the right copy to target that market is important. So this is kind of an example how you could take, 3 different streams of business, so to speak, and run your math. If you look at these, that's 1,000 leads compared to 100. That's a huge difference, but your math is different because the market and how you're targeting them and who they are, they're going to respond differently to. So the last one we can talk about is vacant, divorce, foreclosure, real estate investors, etc. Obviously, there's social media, there's referrals, and I'm not going to go into that because just for the sake of time, I just want to give you some examples with adding new streams of business to your, or streams of revenue, whatever you want to call it, to your business. So if you're going after a niche, the beauty of going after a farm area or a niche compared to a hyper targeted, super, like expireds and FSBOs, those are most likely going to just get bombed by agents. And I still think they're worth going after because if you do a good job, they're a really good source of business because they want to sell. Farm area people, you don't know if they want to sell, so you're hitting everybody. It's kind of like the helicopter approach, but a targeted and more thought out helicopter approach. And when you go after a niche like vacants, divorce, investors, foreclosures, builders, etc., you can think about that niche, you can speak to them specifically, but there's a chance that these are going to have a higher turnover rate than a farm area. But the copy and getting the offer and the postcard and the marketing to speak to them correctly can be challenging. So when you go out and project, I'm going to have these great results, you have to speak to your market and the people you're targeting correctly in order to get a good response rate. So let's just say you're going after 500 of these leads per month, right? So if you go after these leads, what percentage are going to respond? I would hope if you have a good offer that they're going to respond at a higher rate than a farm area. So maybe, let's just say 4%. Well, if you get 4%, you break the math down the same way as the farm area, which may or may not be a good idea. So let's just say 4% respond, and they contact you. Of those 4% that respond, so that's 20 leads, maybe 50% will actually meet you, 50% meet. That's the same math. And if you list 40% of those, it's going to be 4 listings. So that's just an example. I know this isn't perfectly drawn out, just for the sake of room, you get the idea. So whatever you're breaking down, this is kind of how to take your plan, reverse engineer the goal, and try to come up with, here's what I need to do. In another video, I'll break down how to actually turn this plan into a daily and weekly goal, and kind of like an action plan. What do you need to do on a monthly, weekly, and daily on a daily basis? You know, if you're focusing on a daily basis and you have a deal fall apart, chances are you're not going to be able to do any of those activities because you're busy saving a deal from falling apart and destructing and losing the commission, right? But if you know what those goals are and stuff ebbs and flows in your business, or you're really busy showing buyers, you're on a few listing appointments, you don't do any lead generation activities. If you know what those activities are on a daily basis, you do your best to achieve those goals and you review them on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis, you're more likely to hit those goals. So watch the other videos and we'll get into that in more detail.